Good morning. Thank you for being here. And did everybody get a sheet when you came in? Anybody missing one? Okay, Gary's going to tell us a little bit about our next meeting.
Yes, we have lined up for our October meeting, which I think is like the 23rd or 22nd of October, Thursday morning. Okay. Yeah, 23rd I think maybe it is. But we're going to have a speaker come in, Becca Clausen, who is the CEO of Second Harvest. And so I think it'll be a very interesting program. She's going to talk about food insecurity, and I think there's 7 counties that Second Harvest covers. And so, of course, we're familiar with that here with the North Manchester distribution site at the church over here, and then the distribution of some of the foods here also on that same day. Mary Eby sort of organized, and a lot of people help with that distribution here in the manor. So that, I think, put that on your calendar. I think that will be a very interesting presentation.
And one other announcement, I have a friend in Huntington at the Christ the King Episcopal Church. She wanted me to let you know that in November, Katie Gray Brown and some students from the Peace Studies program is going to come there, and they're going to talk about how to have meaningful conversations without conflict and how to become an advocate for peaceful change. So if you'd like to know more about that, let me know. It's November 16th at Christ the King Episcopal Church in Huntington. How many of you have heard of the International Day of Peace? Okay, most of you, good. Last Sunday, of course, was the International Day of Peace. This day was set aside by the United Nations back in 1981 by a unanimous resolution. Now, a lot of things are done unanimously there, but this was one. It's a globally shared date to commit to peace above all differences and contribute to building a culture of peace. The theme this year was Act Now for a Peaceful World. For its part, the United Nations has a peace-building commission that they've been in operation for 20 years now. It also has developed the 17 Sustainable Development Goals to raise living standards around the world. And UN peacekeepers, of course, are serving in several places in the world where they serve as an outside force to keep the peace. I want to take a look at a short video about the day.
Our warring world is crying out for peace. This year's International Day of Peace urges each of us to voice to that call. Around the world, lives are being ripped apart, childhoods extinguished, and basic human dignity discarded amidst the cruelty and degradations of war. We are seeing an explosion of conflicts, international law flouted, and record numbers of people fleeing their homes. All they want is peace. Peace is everyone's business. The impacts of war ripple around the world. We must silence the guns, end the suffering, build bridges, and create stability and prosperity. Sustainable development supports peace. 9 of the 10 countries struggling most in development are suffering conflict. And we must quell the racism, dehumanization, and misinformation that throw fuel on the fires of conflict. Instead, we must speak the language of respect, open our hearts to others, and use our influence to push for peace. Where we have peace, we have hope. Families unite, communities rebuild, children learn and play. Peace cannot wait. Our work starts now. Our warring world is...
Sometimes it may feel a little like we're alone in opposing war, but there are a lot of groups out there that are working toward peace, and the the handout you have there today is just a sample of some of the international and national groups that are working for peace. Of course, there are a lot of local groups. We have our own ECR, Education for Conflict Resolution, right here in North Manchester. Today, we want to just highlight one of those groups, the first one on your list there, World Beyond War. And this is the web page for World Beyond War, and it's listed on there if you want to look it up yourself. And you see on the right-hand side here, why end war? It's immoral, it endangers us, erodes liberties, promotes bigotry, wastes $2 trillion, threatens the environment, impoverishes us, and alternates exist. And then the scrolling thing on the left, there's a book club that they're, and that's the name of the book that they're reading currently. Some of you have heard about this flotilla of aid that's trying, several countries are trying to get into into Gaza. Mapping tool, we'll talk more about that later. Venezuela, you may be aware that the United States has shot a few ships and killed some people off Venezuela. Working at trying to cool things down with China. And they have a global day of education to close bases that's coming up. Okay, let's go on down the page. And this is just a list of how, of events that are happening. And news from the anti-war movement. And there's a lot of news there. In fact, what does it say down at the bottom? It says, page 1,305. So, and then there's a peace pledge. They have a pledge they ask people to read over, and if you agree with it, to sign that. And they have people who have signed this from 204 countries. Now, I went online and looked up how many countries there are in the world, and I think one counts 195. So it depends. I guess it depends on how you count a country, but yeah, they really have a wide reach. There's a thing there to find chapters near you. And of course, a place to donate. And then events and webinars they have coming up. And then below that is a book. They've published a book which gives their idea for a best way that the world could be organized to do away with war. It's called a global security system, and there's a study guide to go with it on the right there. And then below that, they have a number of podcasts you can listen to. And this is a little bit more about their organization and the 10 main accomplishments of the past year. And then if you want some T-shirts, they sell those too. And then clear at the bottom, if you want to contact them, this is a way to contact them. Then back up to the top of the page there, one of the things I like about this web page is it has a list to a lot of resources. If you go over to resources, you see 3 columns. The one in the middle are audio-visual resources. The third one down is webinars. And they periodically put on webinars. About a year and a half, I took part in one of their webinars it was titled Communicating About Peace. And it was a series of lectures and illustrations, and then I had an assignment each time to do, and I sent that assignment in by email, and one of the faculty members looked it over and then sent it back with suggestions for improvement. Now that was a little more elaborate, and I paid a little bit for that, but there are a lot of webinars you can just listen to for free too. So the other thing in that column then was videos. They have quite a variety of videos, and in fact, if you go to the top, it just says select topics. There's a whole bunch of different topics you can select from. But I wanted to just look at one video because it tells more about the organization. A World Beyond War, Is It Possible? And the board president is narrating this video.
Everybody can agree that the world would be a lot better off if we didn't have war. never solves anything, it only makes things worse. The idea behind World Beyond War was that we wanted to address the institution of war, not just the war of the day. If war is to be abolished, it must not be considered as a viable option, because there is no such thing as a good war, just as there is no such thing as good slavery. Both of those institutions are abhorrent under any circumstance. To that end, World Beyond War describes itself as an anti-war organization rather than a peace organization. Peace isn't controversial, everybody wants peace. But there are many things that you can do in the name of peace that don't address war at all. So we think this differentiation is important. The importance of being truly international cannot be stressed enough. The U.S. is the biggest warmongering country by far, and polls rightly show that the rest of the world considers the United States to be the biggest threat to world peace. Pushing the U.S. into the needed changes will require a very strong international effort. World Beyond War is made of members and organizations who have taken the following pledge. We commit to engage in and support nonviolent efforts to end all war and preparations for war, and to create a sustainable and just peace. To date, we have about 75,000 members, which is not a large number considering the mission, but those members come from 189 countries, which represents incredible potential for international collaboration. One of the hurdles to ending war is convincing people that it is actually possible. Many people believe a lot of myths about war, like war is natural. Well, if war were natural, then it wouldn't cause post-traumatic stress disorder. So there's a lot of educating work that needs to be done as we work to abolish war in this way as well. The global security system that we operate under today is essentially run by the United States and is based on war, or the threat of war, or severe economic sanctions which constitute war crimes, like those imposed on Iran right now. The U.S. believes in the might makes right theory and backs it up with an expenditure of $1 trillion a year on war and weapons, almost as much as the rest of the world combined. According to the United Nations, world starvation could be ended with just $3 billion. I can't even imagine what could be accomplished with $1 trillion. World Beyond War wants to transform this system into one that recognizes a role for all nations to work collaboratively on issues that affect the security of all of us, like climate change or a pandemic. We need a system that is based on international law and human rights, and one that would resolve conflicts through diplomacy or international courts, not by violence. The seminal publication of World Beyond War is our book, A Global Security System, An Alternative to War, or AGSS. It's now in its 5th edition and is what we refer to as our blueprint for transforming from the security system that we have today to the one that we want. It describes why an alternative security system is needed, why World Beyond War thinks it is possible to end war, and an outline of an alternative system organized into 3 main sections. The first, demilitarizing security, includes actions that would ease tensions between countries. Military exercises, which is a nice way to say practicing for war, would end. We would close the 800+ military bases the United States has in 80 countries. Military alliances such as NATO would be dismantled because they only serve to deepen the divide between countries. There would be complete disarmament. The treaty prohibiting nuclear weapons is a huge step in the right direction. The second section, managing international conflicts, would include things like reforming or replacing the United Nations to make it more democratic, supporting and respecting the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice, democratizing international economic institutions like the World Bank, and supporting international NGOs like the World Health Organization. Our internationally recognized education program will always be at the core of our work. We have a downloadable study guide for the AGSS and a 15-page summary that has been translated into 9 languages and counting. We offer several online courses: War Abolition 101, War Abolition 201, War in the Environment, and Leaving World War II Behind. We have an expansive website that contains a ton of information, including fact sheets to dispel the myths about war that I mentioned earlier. We do lots and lots of webinars and an annual conference, and we are really excited about a collaboration we have right now with the Rotary International Action Group for Peace on a youth project. We have 2 other campaigns we're working on. The divestment campaign is in collaboration with the United States organization Code Pink, and the idea is to encourage and help entities such as a workers' union or a municipal government take the money that they have, like pension funds, which may be invested in weapons corporations like Boeing, and move them into other stocks and investments that don't support war and militarism. We're also working to shut down the hundreds of U.S. military bases I mentioned earlier. These bases are provocative and threatening and create enormous tension. They are also the source of massive environmental damage that the United States takes no responsibility for. We know it is critical to be connected internationally. We are very proud to have these incredible women on our advisory board, and we are always looking for new members for both our board of directors and our advisory board. We are particularly looking for more international diversity, ethnic diversity, people with connections to international foundations and grant possibilities, and academic institutions and peace studies programs. There are lots of ways to get involved with World Beyond War, and the easiest is to sign the Declaration of Peace on our website. Take an online course and become a member of the Alumni Network. Start a chapter. Our organizing director, Greta Zara, will help you every step of the way. And we can always use help with social media and publicity. You can find all of this information and a whole lot more on our website. Let's work together to make a world that is truly beyond war.
Okay. That was not planned, but okay. On the same heading under resources, there's a group of maps that are really fascinating with a bunch of different facts, and Gary's going to elaborate on some of those.
Okay, we have a lot of maps here that I want to go through several of them. For decades I've enjoyed maps. Back in the old day when we had highway maps that were printed, I think probably you all remember that. And we would go on trips, family trips. I would always have a map of the states we were going through and kind of following along, and that was fun for me. And then for decades, I've also been interested in statistics. And so this is going to be map-centric and statistic-focused for you. So the only problem is that some of this is a little small projected up on there. I will try to zoom it in a little bit so you can see. But this is a bonus for those of you that are sitting in the front half of the chapel. And if you want to move closer, anyone's welcome to do that. Okay, so we have, here's a listing of the maps that they have available. And you can see the different headings here. But we're going to start with this money, total spending. And one of the cool things about this website is this globe that we can spin around here. Let me enlarge it here just a second. And each country has a color code here. And so the one we're going to be mostly interested in are in the dark red color, which is spending of more than 500 billion or half a trillion. So these are the companies or the countries that spend at least half a trillion on their military. And of course, the United States, let's see here. There we go. It's about as big as I can make it. And these are 2024 statistics, almost $1 trillion, if you can see that. And this map also then shows per capita spending. So this is the United States, $2,895 per person of our taxes goes to support the military budget. So each one of us, basically about $3,000 of our taxes is going to the military. So if we swing around here, there really aren't any other, well, on this view here, dark red countries, but some of these bigger ones, like China, 313 billion is their budget, and of course with all their population, their per capita spending is only $220, but not sure that's all that significant. Well, it's significant, I guess. Russia, 148 billion. Per capita is 1,000. There's some other countries here. If we look in Europe, Germany, 88 billion, $1,000 per capita. Ukraine is kind of an interesting, now with the war there, they spent 64 billion in their budget for the war effort, for their military, and their per capita is $1,728. So let's look at another feature here. Well, let me go on around here so you can see not too much here in like Japan. 55 billion, 445 per capita. Oops, here, let's see. The list view is really where you see all these statistics, and they're placed here, 2024, from the most money spent working on down the list of nations. The United States, 997 billion. Number 2 on the list is China, 313, which is about a third of what the US spends. And then we have Russia, 148 billion or 149 billion. That's about 1/7 of what the US budget is. And you can see on down here, Germany is actually number 4 on the list, and et cetera, going down. But I added up these figures, and if we're gonna, the US spends 997 billion, and then you have to add together the next 11 countries on this list before you total what the US spends. So the US spends as much on military as the next 11 nations combined. So that kind of also is something to realize. Okay, let's go back. Let's see here. Weapons exported. Let's look at this map. Let's see here. Right, here's the little legend, and this is 5 billion or more is the dark red color for this map. exporting of weapons from the United States, $13.5 billion. And if we go here to the Europe, we'll see Germany itself exports $2 billion in US funds. But now on these foreign countries, it also adds the statistic, US weapons imported, how much they spent on US weapons, 200 million. France exports 2.27 billion, and they import 8 million of US. Of course, if we look at Russia, they export 1.34 billion, and you notice they do not import any weapons from the United States. Not too surprising, I guess. Ukraine is another interesting case right now. They export 23 million from their own country that they export, but then they import from the United States 2.9 billion, almost $3 billion. So that's, the United States is certainly providing a lot of military weapons for their war. And then it says here, U.S. military aid in quotation marks, 718,000. I'm not exactly sure what that is in terms of military, but we can also go back here. And we can look at the list view of weapons exported, and of course, number one on the list is the United States, and it drops off fairly quickly after that for these other countries. France, Germany, Italy is kind of interesting there on that list. Russia, China are ways down there. Israel too, 1 billion exported. That's for exported. We can also look at the imported list. U.S. weapons imported in dollars. Ukraine is at the top of this list, 2.91 billion. And then Korea, that'd be South Korea, Australia, Japan. You see how the list goes on down there in the hundreds of millions that import U.S. Military weapons. All right. Next map I want to look at is U.S. troops. There's two items here. The number of bases. Now I want to look at the map view first. In Europe, the country that has the most U.S. Bases is Germany, 108 bases, U.S. military bases in Germany. And we also have, actually, let's troops present. I think I want to look at that one also. That's this one. Click. U.S. troops. Yeah. Sometimes you have to be patient. I'm not always all that patient. Okay. Now we have some more red. The red is more than 10,000 U.S. troops stationed in that country. So we'll look at that. What this gives us is both the number of bases and the number of troops. So we have 112 bases in Germany, 48,000 troops stationed there. And the United Kingdom, 25 bases, 11,500 troops. Italy is always a little surprising to me. 42 bases, 15,000 troops. Now, also interesting over here is South Korea, 70 bases. I'm not exactly sure how they come up with these, but I've never thought of South Korea as being large in terms of area, but 70 bases, 26,000 troops. So that's another major location. But Japan, 96 bases, over 60,000 troops. So you can see how the U.S. military is all over the world in terms of bases and troops stationed there. And we can look at the list view here. Go up. Now this is U.S. troops. And you can see Japan is number one, Germany. I'm not sure what unknown means. Maybe that's submarines or something. I don't know. Korea, Italy, Great Britain. Guam is on this list too, but okay. Now I want to go to one other map here, see if I can get there without too much. Yeah, here, I think this will get us there. USA's military empire. Again, dealing with foreign bases, we have these little, I would call them pins stuck in the globe. Let's see here. Now this first one here is total foreign military bases for all countries, 1,244. Not just the United States, but other countries also. So these are military bases all around the world. Oh yes, Antarctica. Australia. Islands in the Pacific. And so we have lots of them. These are military bases that are outside their own country. Now, if we take a look at, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. Satellite view, so you can actually see the continents and the oceans. But if we look at only U.S. bases, (880) of those 1,200 foreign bases are operated by the United States. About 2/3. Keep switching back from the satellite view, but Oh, this is the one down here. Okay. Can't see very much of the globe here, but these are all U.S. foreign bases clustered in Europe. And also out here in the Pacific, small islands. I think that's kind of my portion of this presentation. Turn it back to Dean.
Okay, I wanted to mention just one other video. If you look at the videos, there's one titled The Success of Nonviolent Civil Resistance. And it's a TED Talk by a lady named Erica Chenoweth. She went to a workshop on nonviolence, and she was very skeptical. I think most people, at least in the United States, we seem to think, well, the only protection we have is violence. We've got to be tougher than the other guy. We've got to be strong. And so she kept raising objections. And at the end of the workshop, she wasn't real popular because she kept complaining about everything. But somebody challenged her. She said, why don't you do some checking? He said, you disagree with us. Go and check and see what's happened. So she went back and studied all the places that had, in the recent past, that had revolutions, whether they were revolutions, nonviolent revolutions, or violent revolutions. And she found that twice as many of the nonviolent revolutions were successful. So actually the violent revolutions were not working well. In fact, when governments were set up after the violent revolutions, they didn't work as well. The governments did not last that well. So she's written a book, let's see if I have the name of it, yeah. Why Civil Resistance Works, the Strategic Logic of Nonviolent Conflict. But that's another video you can find on there. Okay, just to close off, we want to show you a short clip, which is a little sarcastic perhaps. It's about foreign intervention. Why too often we get into wars.
All right, this feels almost illegal to know, but our windows were so old and just desperately needed to be replaced. So I called a few contractors.
Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure and an honor to meet you and your people. The U.S. government supports you in every possible way, ideologically, of course. However, we cannot offer any military aid at this time.
With all due respect, Ambassador, we need...
We are dealing with terrorism on a daily basis.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Warlords overrun villages.
Yes, that's regrettable.
Rapes, tortures, all manner of human atrocities.
That's really sad. But the U.S. military is simply spread too thin. We can't afford another intervention at this time.
But what we could use your help with really is protecting our vulnerable, plentiful, and newly discovered oil reserves.
Oil? Excuse me 1 second. Operation Golden Eagle is a go. Welcome to democracy.
We also have natural gases. Oh, yes, lots of it.
Yeah, I forgot to ask, are there any questions any of you have before you go? Thank you. Thank you.